Greetings, everyone. Dave Danto here with Dave Michels. Dave, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm fantastic.
We're a couple of weeks, a little more than a couple of weeks past Webex One that I was honored and privileged to attend. And if you've been looking online with the coverage of Webex One, a lot of people have talked about the press releases and the stories and some of the other items that have come out of that conference. But there are like three or four, maybe five topics that I don't think is really people haven't peeled the onion on. They're not good or bad.
That's our job, Dave. We are the onion peelers of the industry.
We are the onion. Oh, well, if I'm going to do onion peeling, I'm going to have to put on my Webex One cap, and no, it doesn't work. That's okay, but I'll hold my Webex One. There we go. See, it's all the kitsch that came from the show and the T-shirt I wore yesterday. All right, so let's ask each other these questions and have this conversation so people can kind of figure it out. One of the things that was thrown out there by a number of the speakers, by G2, by Snora, by a few others, is a term called full stack collaboration.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to stop you right there, Dave. And so,
Okay.
so first off, you were there. I watched remote, and so we got the full experience of this conference.
Hmm.
And so I full stack collaborate. My question to you is, what the hell is full stack collaboration?
Oh, it was an interesting position for Cisco to take. And I don't mean that there's no connotation here. They're talking about if you really want to have a functional enterprise ecosystem on collaboration with AI included, that you're going to have to take it across all aspects of the collaboration suite. And they define those as networking, as security, as collaboration, and then they use the term observability. They were
Hey, they,
saying,
they make all that stuff.
well, that's the point. They do make all that stuff. They make the network switches, they make the collaboration gear. And in terms of observability, when you stay within that Cisco WebEx platform, you see what's going on all the time in all the rooms and you understand what the issues are. So it's an interesting question. Is some should we've been asking this probably in
So,
the industry for
so,
20
so
years.
again, I'm still not clear what this is because one thing that WebEx has been emphasizing over the past years is their interoperability. So does a full stack collaboration approach mean single vendor or not?
I think they're saying it means single vendor. I think they're comparing themselves to some of the other platforms that are out there and saying when you use some of those other platforms and mix vendors, one makes your endpoints, one makes your switches, one makes your platform, the AI, no matter what you're doing, even if you say the AI is part of the platform, they're saying that it's not full stack collaboration, so it's inherently bolted on. Even when they're saying it's not bolted on, it's bolted on because they are not giving you the observability of the network, of the switch, of the security that's embedded in every step of the process. And like I said, it's a 20 to 30-year-old argument about this is why you should be single vendoring your items. They're very proud of how the collaboration portfolio has been selling lately, mostly because, as we talked about a number of times, that they're now Microsoft Teams compatible, but people are coming back to WebEx and they're looking at this full stack and saying, you know what, there's some value in doing this.
I think they're playing both sides, and I think they're actually playing both sides well based on the way you described it. They're doing the full stack argument, so come to us for all this stuff. But they're also doing the interop argument. You just talked about Cisco, but they also interop with Zoom and others. And they're basically saying, give us a chance, go ahead and integrate with everything you want, but you'll find that full stack experience more comprehensive. And
Exactly.
okay.
And I think that customers nowadays are going to have to look at, with AI is a boulder gathering moss tumbling down a mountain. It's getting bigger, it's unwieldy, nobody knows what's going on. We've talked about it in a number of videos. The fact that you
Did you
really
say the
don't
boulder is gathering moss?
doesn't the rolling, oh no,
No,
but
no, Rolling Stones
gather snow
gather
moss.
no moss. You got that backwards.
That's
You're never
gathering,
going to make it as an analyst, David.
yeah,
Uh,
probably.
you,
It's gathering snow. It's getting bigger.
okay.
The blob,
You got the metaphors mixed up. Okay.
yeah,
All
the
right. The
blob's
snowball's
getting
getting
bigger.
bigger. Okay. All right.
And
That I'm
and
with that. And do snowballs gather moss is my question.
well, snowballs gather snow, but and cabins and people that are stuck in avalanches. But anyway, the point that I'm making is people don't have a handle on what's going on with AI. This idea that I'm getting everything from one throat to choke, not a horrible idea anymore.
Not a
So,
hor- it,
and
it,
it was subtly presented. It wasn't presented in a way that they were slapping people's faces with it, that you have to be using this and you have to be, they were very high on interoperability, very high on what their systems can do, but that full stack collaboration kept coming up as little words that were popping up. They're very proud of their portfolio. So I thought it was an interesting thing that very few people have talked about, and I wanted to bring that to the fore. So we can put that to the side, and then I can ask you about, they had the list of announcements that came out at Webex One was enormous, and it was terrific. And then this little one buried at the bottom around the expansion of Webex Go, and now it's available on a number of platforms. I pulled that out because I was having a conversation with the guys from Audio Codes. You pulled it out because you were having a conversation with the guys from Tango. It's actually a pretty big deal, isn't it?
I think this is what's known as burying the lead. I think that they were burying the lead. To me, this is a fairly significant story. I've been writing a lot about it. I think it was about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I wrote about what I call UCAS Mobility 3, which is the idea of putting a UCAS phone number natively on a cell phone as opposed to over the top. And Cisco, Microsoft are doing this very nicely. Both companies are doing it two different ways: one MVNO approach and an MNO approach, and they both have their merits and strengths. Um, Neither one has taken off. And so people keep saying, Dave, you're like making a big deal about nothing, nobody cares. But I believe this is going to be one of those things that's like nobody cares, nobody cares, nobody cares, and boom, it's going to be big. And I don't know when that boom is. It hasn't happened yet, but it's coming, man. It's like that snowball gathering moss or something. But it's definitely coming. And I think that this announcement from Webex One is a step in a big step toward that making it more accessible. Um, One issue is that it's not that easy for Americans to deal with what I call UCAS Mobility 3 because we tend to buy our phones from carriers and the carriers tend to lock them. We're the only country that is stupid enough to do this. And so one thing that they're doing is they're expanding globally what markets you can do this in. And so I think that's going to be huge because the one market is available and it's kind of hostile to do it in. And then the other thing that they're doing is they're opening it up to partners. I think it was 6 partners. Is that right? Okay, you're nodding your head.
Yeah.
Let's see. I got a list here: Audio Codes, Call Tower, Pure IP, NTT, New Wave, and Tata. I didn't count that. Was that 6? And
So
so these partners now are able to sell the MVNO capability directly. And what people don't realize is that these partners can now sell uh, calling, meeting, messaging or team chat, contact center, and cellular globally under one contract. And that's pretty significant. And I think this is a very exciting move for these
what will the
companies.
experience be for me as an end user, if I'm partnering with one of these providers? That what's different than what I experience
You
now?
know, you and I travel quite a bit. I was just in Africa, and when we travel, we have to deal with roaming contracts all the time, and it's a whatever. So when you get onto an MVNO environment, you basically have the same virtual carrier everywhere you go. So I've been playing around with the WebEx version of this, and it says WebEx at the top left of my cell phone. And everywhere, I mean, any country I go to, it just pops up with WebEx, and it works. And so from an enterprise perspective, instead of managing a cell plan in every country, you can manage one cell plan globally. So that's one advantage. And then from a user's advantage, because it's native to the SIM on the phone, it's a much higher quality experience than over the top. And so there's not very many UCaaS companies are doing this. And you can't fault them because there's not much demand for it. But Microsoft keeps on building out their MVNO story and their MNO story. They're doing both strategies. Cisco keeps building it out. And we've seen companies like in Europe and Reach doing this. We've seen RingCentral doing it with their partners. AT&T and Vodafone are doing it. So it's getting there popular. Most of the users aren't quite aware of it yet, but it's a no-brainer. It's so freaking obvious. Manage a phone number from a hard phone to a soft phone to a smartphone, and not have two phones. It's just so obvious. And so I think this is I think they buried the lead. I mean, this was
Yeah, and
not
again,
in
it was a
the.
it's a very big deal that came out of this conference that nobody was really talking about. That required a little bit of analysis. So I think that's definitely one we'll stay on top of and track and follow your leadership on that one.
All right, now I got one for you.
Okay.
Mr. AV, I have a question for you. Um, they announced ceiling mics. I thought ceiling mics were obsolete. What is going? Why did Cisco announce a new ceiling mic, or what's it called, the Mic Pro?
The Ceiling Mic Pro. Well, this is another one where you need to, be part of our onion peeling team. This is more like the Olympic onion peeling team to figure out what's going on. When Cisco bought Tandberg, they used to have a big lucite room hanging microphone, and then they have the table mics and the desk mic. They've never really had a good microphone strategy. They came out with this design. They showed us a prototype of it about a year ago, where it's got 64 different microphone elements in it and a beam forming array with three high frequency speakers to help it automatically set itself up. I'm not a big fan, and we've talked about this before. I'm not a huge fan of ceiling speakers. It's a very nice product. It's a well-built, well-designed product. It's good for the environment. They figured out how to make it smaller. They figured out how to put a cover on it so they're not wasting material. They really did. Gavin Investor and the team really just awesome. But I don't see this like most people do as a ceiling microphone. Yeah, they're going to sell a bunch of them right now. They'll hang them in the rooms. They'll use them. They're really good quality. But what this is saying is more in line with what we were writing about a couple of about months ago, where microphone technology in conference rooms now have so many stacked algorithms of machine learning and AI to clean the audio that where you put the microphone and how you put the microphone is much less important. I used to work in AV when, in order for a microphone to work, you needed to have it near your mouth because you can't change the laws of physics. That's what we all used to say. The sound pressure level coming out of somebody's mouth, the closer you are, the better it'll sound. And there have been arrays, there have been shotguns, there have been all kinds of things. But what we've got now is the ability to take really garbagey audio in a room using, Cisco's, their AI codec that they've talked about, but there are at least a dozen publicly available and
It's
licensable.
usually when I talk in a meeting that people say the audio is garbage. I didn't know that was other people as well, but I
Difference
know I'm a
between
victim.
content and audio. Difference between content and audio, but bouncing off of glass walls in the room, not facing the microphone. The mic's here, I'm facing there. All of these things are now correctable with technology. We can, the Beatles records that they tried to produce with using tracks that were unusable 10 years ago are now usable now because we've got the ability to clean the audio. So I look at the Ceiling Mic Pro as a cute product, but I look at it more as a look at where we're going with microphones. We are going to have 5 years from now, we're going to have microphones built into everything in the meeting room. They're going to be part of the lighting fixtures. They're going to be part of the displays up in the front of the room. They're going to, where people are not using, high oak or maple or high end tables, they're going to be built into the technology in the tables. It doesn't matter where you put the microphones anymore. And, as an audio guy, I hate saying that, but that's the truth. It doesn't matter because you can take really bad audio and make it sound really good. So what we're seeing
What I
is,
didn't understand when they talked about the ceiling mics was how quick they were to install. I mean, what makes these microphones quicker to install than, do they just have a hook on them, or what's going on here?
well, no, the idea is that in large conference rooms that have audio pickup, sound reinforcement systems, you have to balance out the speakers in the room that are doing voice lift from the microphones in the room. You don't want feedback, you don't want delay, you don't want echo. These are all things that used to have to manually be done on a DSP in a room. And there are I don't know 100 companies in the United States that sell these DSPs, and I know 5 guys that know how to program them well. So you do the math and figure out how many bad conference rooms are out there, and I will stand by those numbers till the day I die. But this microphone tunes itself. It sends out high frequency blasts and pitches, and it understands what the echoes are in the
Kind of
room.
like a fancy speakerphone, because it was the same problem with speakerphones, and so they had to figure out this noise, auto dynamic noise cancellation so that it would not have feedback.
Correct. And every time you move the microphone on the table, you essentially change the echo cancellation algorithm, the AEC, so it would have all these effects. So by creating a ceiling mic with all the elements in one place, never moving, hanging over a table, and being able to automatically tune it, hanging it from the room, somebody's got to run its PoE. It just takes a Cat 5, Cat 6 cable. It hangs on whatever you want to hang it on. If you want to hang it on a string, you want to hang it on a wire, or whatever you're putting it on. So it still takes however much time it's going to take to hang it. But the idea is you press a button and it sets itself up. And you didn't need any one of those five guys that I mentioned to tune the audio in the room, which is a cost savings. And great when we're not talking about a complex space. And in all honesty, the argument that was meant to me by other people that were working on automatic tuning microphones, not Cisco, is that it saves those five guys for applications where they're really needed, where you're building this weird shaped room or an auditorium or a congress or some other kind of thing where you really need that level of expertise. But for a meeting room nowadays, plug it in, turn it on, press the button, and you're finished. And that's a bigger story than the Ceiling Mic Pro. Yes, they'll sell them. Yes, they're cool. Yes, it's a great product. But what it is the introduction of microphones that are going to be all over conference rooms that are going to just tune
So in
themselves.
theory, you should be able to buy these ceiling mic pros and put them anywhere in the room. You don't have to put them on the ceiling.
In theory, but I think these are meant to be right over the speakers.
Okay. All right. Interesting. Very good.
So the next one that came up, we saw an amazing demo, and if you haven't seen it, you should take a look at it. Where they were showing the Webex AI agent, which was something that I had never seen anything like before. I've dealt with voice managed AI response systems before. This had a natural language voice. This was able to access systems, tell me how much time I have left for PTO, tell me how many vacation days, and by the way, how do I make a deposit into my savings account? And it had access to all the back end systems. It was talking in a natural language voice, and it was able to spin on a dime. When I was asking it for, hey, I want to set up some vacation days. Oh, no, never mind. I don't want to do that. Tell me about how I contribute to my 401k. It was able to actually change on the dime and switch it. And it had what they call guardrails, which is when you asked it, hey, what's the weather going to be like in Miami? Because that's where I'm going on vacation. It could have given you that answer, but they had set up guardrails on it to say, that's not what I'm here to do. You can find that online somewhere. So
Is
we're
that a good
seeing,
thing, though, honestly? I mean, why can't it give you the weather? I mean,
you would be surprised how much of a debate that was at Webex One when it came out. Why couldn't you do that? They were trying to demonstrate the guardrails in case something was asked for. Like,
yeah.
hey, could you put $1 million in my account? The key though is this was the first appearance. Granted, it was a demo, so I'm sure they didn't train it on everything. They only asked it the questions they had trained it on. But this is the first demo of a natural language processed AI agent for contact centers. And I
At
know
Cisco. At
at
Cisco.
Cisco.
Let's be clear about that.
Well, that's why
Nobody
this
just
is your space, not mine, and that's why I wanted to bring
no,
this up because I heard a term I had not heard before, which I probably should know about. This
don't
concept,
don't don't say
agentic.
that. Don't say that word. I refuse to use that agent. I get a tick every time I say it. Don't say that word. We're not going to say that word. Is that the WebEx AI agent? I can say that, but I'm not going to say that
Is this a
agent.
new class of contact center agents? Are we going to be at that same, at the Gaylord Palms next year or the year after? And instead of you trying to press O for an operator, you're going to want to press the button to bring up this agent because it's
So,
fast and
so
more
my
accurate.
first job in telecom was with a innovative startup company that was doing IVRs. And people would say, what's an IVR? And I would have to say, when you push one or this, one for this and two for that. And at first it was kind of cool because you was self-service and you can get all these answers you wanted really quickly. But of course they got abused and everybody started, and and it got to the point where I would say, when I would answer the question what an IVR is, they would get mad at me and start yelling at me. And so, uh,
Well, the problem is your menu has changed, so you have to listen to the choices.
but yes, the point that reason I bring that up is because the early IVR demos were just like this, right? Watch this. I'm going to call and I'm going to find out my bank balance, and I'm not going to talk to it. It's like, oh no, that can't be done. And then you would call up and you would enter your account number, you'd enter your PIN code, and they would give you your. It's like, oh my God, all without a human, and so amazing magical stuff going on here. Now, I'm not as impressed. They did a great demo, and I know why they did the demo. This is what everybody wants. Now, when I say everybody, I mean enterprise CFOs. But this is what they want. They want to automate more and more of their contact centers, and Cisco is not the only one demonstrating this. Salesforce just did a very impressive similar demo at Dreamforce. I've seen demos from Cognigy. I've seen a lot of these demos, and they're all very, very impressive. And you watch the demo, it's like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. But they're all demos. And so when a customer gets up on that stage and shows what they're doing, I'll be really impressed. Now, I was at a conference actually where a customer did get up on stage and showed a demo just like this. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. And then she said, now this is just in our labs. We're not putting this in production yet. I said, okay, never mind. Got it. That's the same old story. So there's strong demand for this technology. This is what people want. This is what people are excited about. And when I say people, I mean the CFOs. But the reality is they're not quite there yet. And just like IVRs, as soon as you don't follow on that right path, you get in trouble. Now, so the best examples of this is something like I think Lufthansa, for example, is doing this with rebooking a ticket. And so that's actually, they're using conversational AI on the front end, and they're using what I call legacy AI on the back end, because legacy AI works and it's a very narrow, very specific job role. That's great. What you're talking about is to be able to flip on a turn on a dime and change subjects and natural language, all that stuff. That isn't quite there yet. And those guardrails aren't quite there yet. Guardrails are a great metaphor because they keep people from falling off the road and crashing. But they don't quite work that way in generative AI yet, just yet. We're getting closer. And so they have a right to demo it, and there's going to be some very narrow use cases where this works, but I'm not going to get too excited until I hear about a customer implementing it properly and to their satisfaction.
Fair enough. So
But
you have to assume every AI demo you see online and in a big conference is faked unless you do it yourself and throw things at it that it's not
well, I
expecting.
wouldn't say fake. I mean, it's a demo, and they said it was a
You saw the
demo.
stuff that Google did. I would say faked.
Okay. All right. Well, fake reminds me of fake Zoomtopia, but we're not. That's a different video. But speaking of Zoomtopia, let's wrap this up. I got a question for you. We had WebEx and Zoomtopia this month. That's two big conferences with two. I hate to say Zoom and Cisco are similar, but at least the WebEx portfolio and the Zoom portfolio are kind of similar. And so, two big annual conferences, similar kind of content. What do you think? Where are we? Were these conferences the same? Were they different? What's your take on that?
Well, it's interesting. As you know, Zoom used to do a much bigger conference. They pared it down and they wanted most attendance to be virtual. And I attended virtually this year more because of scheduling than anything else.
Now, I'm going to correct you right there because Cisco said they did a hybrid event, and Cisco said we have an in-person audience, but most of our attendees are remote, is what they said. And so they were both doing mostly remote.
Well, the keynotes from both sessions, both events, were remote and you could watch them. And in fact, for at least one of the keynotes, I didn't go to the VIP seating for analysts. I stayed up in my hotel room because then I could take clips off the video and get things out to our readers faster. So
I've done
that was
that trick. That's a good
a
trick.
better experience. Comes from my years at CES, but when I realized they were doing it, it's like awesome. The sessions at WebEx One were not available virtually, to my knowledge. I didn't see them anywhere. The sessions at Zoomtopia were mostly available virtually, but they were all pre-canned. So it's like, is that really something I need to watch now? What's the real time? So I would say that Zoomtopia did a better job explaining workflows. So you would understand, they came up with this idea of AI creating your task list. They came up with this, their new version of Zoom Docs. They, tied it into meetings. They tied it into their custom iterations. So they were more about what's going on at work. Cisco's perspective was much larger. Because Cisco had people there that are networking people. It was not a virtual event in the same sense that Zoom's was to pare down the attendance. They were feeding an army there for 3 days. Trust me, walk down, you lose the table at the end. It was enormous. I think Cisco did a really good job explaining AI as more than just a buzzword. And I've been a critic of AI, as you've been, for a lot of different reasons, but I think they did a much better job explaining with this agent piece. I think they did a better job explaining how their observability is going to be managed by AI. Here are all the endpoints. Look, each one of them has a fault, and it's telling you if you press the button, you can correct the fault. But by the way, you can correct it on the other 14 units as well with the single press of a button. So they really showed, how AI was going to work within the stack of what they're doing and how security was going to work in it. It was a good experience being there, and I think being there again is worthwhile. I think Zoom may have pared back a little too much. And as you and I did with our fake Zoomtopia, I think they were overemphasized on AI. In fact, I was having a conversation with another analyst today about something he said that was in Eric's keynote. And I said to him point blank, I watched it live and I've watched it again twice, and I didn't see what you're talking about. I clearly missed it. And the reason I missed it is there was so much AI flying around that I probably tuned it out. And that's a lesson that, if we're over rotated on this stuff, the messaging isn't getting through.
Well, arguably, both companies are pretty heavily rotated on AI right now, and even the new hardware that Cisco came out with was AI. The AI
Yeah, but
speakers.
you had Snorri sitting on the stage, walking up to a screen of Cisco Spaces, booking a room on his phone, running to the other side of the stage, showing how the device was booked. It had his name on it and how it gave him his task list on the bottom of it. Yes, that's AI, but that was more physical, concrete hardware doing things and
That's the
explaining.
best part of hardware is it's a physical prop, and that was the problem I had when we moved from hard phones to soft phones, because there's a certain amount of satisfaction you have slamming down a phone, and that's my final word, bam, and hang it down. You can't do that on a soft phone, just not the same.
I agree with you, David. So thanks very much for chatting with me about all these insights that we got out of Webex One. They're not necessarily at the top of everybody else's list. And we'll see you on the next Talking Points chats.